Hi guys, Viktoriya Khusit here with VK Consulting, and today let's talk about what is new in taxes for tax year 2021. What it means that when you file your taxes next year in 2022 for this year 2021, what are the differences gonna be? And today let's talk about difference in child and dependent care credit. Usually, child and dependent care credit is a non-refundable credit, meaning that you can take this credit up to your tax liability. If you owe tax, you can adjust your tax with this credit. Refundable credit is a credit that you can get back in the form of the refund. So the new big thing for 2021 that child and dependent care credit will be refundable, meaning that if you qualified for this credit, you will be able to receive money back in the form of a refund. Let me explain who is qualified for this credit, what this credit covers, how much you can receive once you file your tax return, and what you basically need to do. A little history of child and dependent care credit. Taxpayers can receive a credit between 20 to 35% of eligible child care or dependent care expenses. And it's available up to maximum of $3,000 of qualified expenses. If you have a child and your child is in a daycare and you are working parent, you have to spend $3,000 to receive a credit of 35%, which is $1,050 if your adjusted gross income is less than $15,000. And then it starts changing, and for taxpayers who adjusted gross income over $43,000, the credit is only 20% or $600. And again, this is non-refundable credit, which means that if you have a tax liability, you can deduct this $600 of your tax liability and make your tax liability lesser. But if, for example, you don't owe any taxes, you cannot get the $600, or if it's $1,000 as a refund. Who is a qualifying person? Qualifying person is a taxpayer, and this taxpayer, a parent, needs to meet following tests. The filing status must be single head of household, qualified widower, or married filing jointly, meaning that the people who married filing separately is not really eligible to receive this credit with certain exemptions. The care must be for one or more qualifying person. A taxpayer, a parent, must have earned income during a year, meaning the parent has to work. And taxpayers must pay the expenses, so as I said, taxpayer can work. If, for example, it's husband and wife, and husband is working and wife is staying home, or opposite, the wife is working and husband is staying home, this couple is not eligible to receive child dependent care credit, even if child goes to daycare. And the taxpayer must identify the care provider on the tax return, have name, address, tax ID, or social security number. If you paying somebody cash and you have no information for this person, you cannot take this credit. If a taxpayer paid somebody to care for the child so that the taxpayer or spouse could work or look for work, the taxpayers may be able to take this credit for child care and dependent care expenses. Now let's look what's new. This is a history of this credit. Now let's see how it changes for 2021. The child and dependent care credit has been increased to allow for taxpayers to write off expenses up to $8,000 for one child. It's up from $3,000, and $16,000 for two or more. Before it was just $6,000. And this credit becomes refundable. taxpayers can claim up to 50% of those expenses in the credit. What it means that the taxpayer will be possibly eligible to receive, if they have one child, up to $4,000 as a refundable credit and up to $8,000 for 2 or more children. Individual or household with earnings up to $125,000 will be able to claim 50% of $8,000 paid toward having their child or dependent cared for. And this credit gonna phase out until household income over $438,000. So if total household income is over $438,000, this couple will not be able to claim any child and dependent care credits. But from under $125,000, it's up to 50%, and then it slowly gets phased out until it goes to zero. For those that qualify for this credit, people will need to fill out a form 2441. It's child and dependent care expenses, and this form will be included again on a tax return when we file in 2022. And the software always has this form. It's not a new form. It will be included, and if you already had a child in a daycare or dependent care, you already filled out this form, so you would be familiar with the form. The only difference that is happening, that the amount of a credit will dramatically change and it becomes refundable, meaning that if you have no balance due, you possibly can receive a refund of $4,000, maybe additional refund of $4,000, or up to $8,000 if you have 2 or more qualified dependent. Keep in mind that cost of overnight camps or private educations are not counting toward this credit, but cost for before and after school programs can qualify along with domestic help, as long as domestic help like a nanny reporting their income. It has to be traceable income, and you report and your nanny reports it. The person paid to provide care cannot be spouse of the taxpayer, a dependent of the taxpayer of the parent of the qualifying child. So basically, if it's your child, you cannot pay your spouse to take care of the child. Now, qualifying person, a dependent under the age of 13 when the care was provided, and the individual living with the taxpayer for more than half of a year who's physically or mentally unable to care for themselves. I hope this was useful information, and once it's time to file your taxes, you know this, so you have another 6 months to carefully plan what you're doing with your children and before school and after school, and you track your payment and make sure that you have all the information for your care provider, like tax ID, addresses, names. Thank you very much, and don't forget to subscribe.